Ask God to help us, because only God can help black people where they are. Black people had Africa, that big old continent over there. They never built one boat that was seaworthy, not one. Ask God to help us, because only God can help black people where they are. Black people had Africa, that big old continent over there. They never built one boat that was seaworthy, not one. There's not one monument in Africa, in all of Africa. I know you're talking about Egypt. Egypt is not Africa. There are no great cities that were built. Even before the first colonization of white people coming to the shores of Africa, or the slave ships, black men built nothing. No sewer system, no houses above one level, and none of them made out of stone. All of them made out of grass and wood. Black men, before the white man ever got to Africa. The worst thing that could ever happen to South Africa was when they gave it to Nelson Mandela and black folk. That was a great nation. Now, notwithstanding apartheid was wrong, we all know it's wrong, I'm against it. There should have been some other resolution, though, than turning it over to Nelson Mandela. Disease, AIDS, and crime is running wild in Johannesburg. They're killing one another over there. They're dying of sickness. The government is mismanaged. The people who ran the nation are now leaving the nation because black folk don't know how to run no nation. They don't know how, and we need to admit it. I know you don't like it, but you need to stop shucking and jiving. We got a problem. Nigeria produces oil every year, yet the children over there are hungry and pot-bellied and walking barefoot. We got a problem. You talk about the Hutus and the Tutsis. Look what's going on in Zimbabwe now with Mugabe. We got a problem, black folk. And forget about Zimbabwe and South Africa, Nigeria. Look at what y'all are doing in Harlem. You can't even hold on to Harlem. We got a problem. Black folk don't understand the world. You can get mad with me all you want. You can say what you want, but you can't prove me wrong. Now, I'm not saying this because I hate black folk. I'm saying it because I love you enough to tell the truth. And the only person going to ever help us get out of the situation is going to be God. There's something wrong with the black man's mind. There's something wrong with his mind. He does not understand the world. He doesn't. I don't care if he learned medicine. He doesn't understand the world. He can't even hold on to Harlem. When he was here, he moved out. We got to talk to the Lord. People, we got to talk to God. And black women, Shirley Chisholm, Harriet Tubman, Coretta King, one of her boys. Yeah, okay, then we got a black president. But you black women, what's wrong with y'all? Y'all gonna let that white woman? What's wrong with you black women voting for Barack? Don't you understand? It should have been a black room if you're gonna have a black president. What's wrong with you? Y'all ain't got no sense, you black women. Your men treat you like the dogs, like your dogs. They walk all over you. They make you pay the bills at home, and then the preachers pimp you in the churches and make you pay the bills. Y'all crazy black women buying these black men private jets, the tune of $50 million for a ride around in a private jet. And you talk about, look at our pastor. What's wrong with y'all women? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? And what's wrong with a black man that would take that kind of money out of a poor neighborhood and buy himself a private jet? What's wrong with y'all niggas? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you, black women? What's wrong with you voting for Barack Obama? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with y'all? Crazy. Black people, let me tell y'all something. If you don't ever hear me say preach again, they can kill me tomorrow. But let me tell you something. We're not going to ever get anywhere until we look into the mind of a black man. He doesn't think correctly. I don't care what he is. He can be a doctor. He can be an astrophysicist. The nigga got no sense. You talk to him. You talk to a black man. He doesn't understand the world. He's never built anything. The most the black people have ever done, they did it here in America under white people's help. When they were in Africa, they didn't do nothing.
From what I'm understanding, in third world countries, anything that is not under maintenance is because, you know, we don't care.
No, you care. It's not in the concept. Travel the 54 countries in Africa and ask each person in every country, what is wrong with your country? Leadership. Leadership. All of you say the same word. So let me ask you, since 1960, the country has been picking the wrong leader every 4 years. Not a single railway built by the British is in Nigeria today, but the one they built in their country that same year, it's still running. Not a single railway built in Ghana in 1960 is still there today. What do you know in that country that has been properly maintained by the people every day and it works perfectly?
It's hard for people to maintain things when they're not gaining a lot.
No, it's hard for people to maintain things when they don't have the concept of maintenance in their culture. What is the one word in Igbo for maintenance?
Maintenance is, there's no direct English word for that. It doesn't translate directly to maintenance.
That's correct. How about you?
It doesn't translate.
That's correct.
But it translates to like take care of.
No, that is not maintenance. What is the one word for repair in Igbo?
Imezie.
Exactly. What is the one word for repair in You see, I'm driving you to somewhere. What is the one word for democracy in Igbo language? You don't. How about you? You don't. You're trying to practice something that is not in the concept of the language. There is no African country, and I've done it through Kenya, I've done it all, that has an equivalent of the word maintenance.
Well, in order to maintain something, you have to have it first. Correct.
No, if I leave it for you, you can maintain it. The British left a lot of things in this country when they left. They established the hospitals, they established the fire stations, the post offices, the railway lines, the roads they built before they left. You are not able to maintain it because you don't have that concept. Because your environment, the tropical environment of Africa, the way you build your houses, the material you use, you don't require maintenance. Every country that is called industrialized countries, today one of the things you know about them is maintenance of what they have. That's why we have buildings here that are about 250 years old, 300 years old in this country. There are buildings in other countries of Europe that are 700 years ago. The Notre Dame that burned in France was a 13th century building. Do you know what kept it that long till today? Maintenance is a culture.
A pastor just went viral saying Africans build nothing. Let me show you why that's not just wrong. It's deliberately dishonest. See, there is this narrative floating around the black diaspora that we're somehow incapable, that our ancestors never built boats, cities, or infrastructure, that every achievement we have comes from white people's supervision. And honestly, it's designed to make us feel small, to make us believe that our problems ain't systemic, they are inherent. But here's the thing, that narrative falls apart the second you actually look at the evidence. Now, what you're dealing with is not African incompetence. It is a carefully constructed historical erasure, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Stick with me, I'm going to walk you through the actual history, the infrastructure, the innovation, the systems our ancestors built, because if we don't know our own power, we'll keep believing their lies. Now, they say Africans never built anything. Let me spend the next 8 minutes or so showing you exactly how there's a lie, not just historically but mathematically impossible to believe if if you actually look at the evidence. First, let's understand what we're dealing with. This narrative that black people and Africans are inherently incapable, it's not new. It's been refined since the transatlantic slave trade and colonialism. It serves a very specific purpose: to make systemic theft look like natural order. The pastor's claim is simple: Africans never built seaworthy boats, never built cities, never built anything of value. But here's what is actually happening. He's taking one specific period in history, the last 150 years of colonialism and post colonial extraction, and projecting it backward onto 10,000 years of human civilization. That's not history, that's propaganda. Think about it logically. If African people inherently lack the cognitive ability to build infrastructure, how did we build any of it? How did we manage empires, trade networks, and complex societies? If we're incapable, we'd have been incapable then too, right? But that's not what the evidence shows. Okay, let's talk about what Africans actually built. Ancient Egypt and Kush. I know the pastor tried to exclude Egypt by saying they look more white, but that's not scholarship. That's desperation. Egypt was black African civilization. The pyramids weren't accidents. They required advanced mathematics, engineering, logistics, and labor organization. The Great Pyramids of Giza, built with precision that modern engineers still marvel at it. Kush took it further. They built pyramids after Egypt, proving they weren't just inheriting knowledge, they were innovating on it. The kingdom of Kush had iron smelting technology, agricultural systems, and administrative structures that sustained empires for centuries. And I'm proud to say that my community comes from the tribe of Kush because we're the Bantus. The great Zimbabwe city built between the 11th and 15th centuries in southern Africa. Stone structures, sophisticated architecture, evidence of advanced trade networks spanning the Indian Ocean. No mortar, precision cut stones. This wasn't primitive, this was engineering. Let us talk about Timbuktu, a city of 100,000 people in the 15th and 16th centuries. Universities, manuscript libraries, scholarships. The University of Sankore was producing scholars in mathematics, astronomy, law, and theology, while Europe was still in the feudal period. Manuscripts survive, thousands of them. We have written evidence of African intellectual achievement, and people still ignore it. Yoruba states, city states, Benin, Auyo, and others, sophisticated urban planning, bronze work, Benin bronzes that are so technically perfect that European colonizers literally refuse to believe Africans made them. They argue that white people must have taught the Yoruba. That's not history, that's racism dressed as scholarship. Ethiopian architecture, churches carved out of single rock formations, the Church of St. George in Lalibela, precision artistry, engineering that required deep understanding of structural dynamics and aesthetics. This was not accident, it was intentional mastery. Mali Empire, there were trade networks spanning thousands of miles, administrative systems. Mansa Musa's pilgrimage to Mecca in the 14th century was so economically significant it affected currency exchange rates across North Africa and the Middle East. An African leader was so wealthy and powerful that his spending destabilized economies, but somehow he lacked capacity. How? Aksumite Kingdom, the Kingdom of Aksum, maritime trade, coinage, written language, complex administration. They were a superpower, literally minting their own currency and trading with Rome, Persia, and India. These weren't obscure examples. These are civilizations that produced evidence, architecture that still stands, manuscripts that still exist, archaeological remains that tell the story. The pastors claim that Africans built nothing requires actively ignoring centuries of documented achievement. Alright? Now, let us address the maintenance culture argument because it's particularly insidious. The pastor says Africans can't maintain infrastructure because they lack the concept of maintenance. This is pseudoscience, and here's why. First up, maintenance is not a racial trait, it is a structural function of economic systems. When you have stable institutions, predictable revenue, and institutional memory, maintenance happens. That's simple. When you have extractive institutions, corruption, and resource scarcity, infrastructure decays. This is not African. This is universal. This thing happens everywhere. Look at infrastructure decay in post-Soviet states, across Latin America, in parts of the American South. When systems are designed to extract value rather than build resilience, maintenance fails. It has nothing to do with race. Second, the British railway example is misleading. The British left infrastructure in Africa designed for extraction, to move resources to ports for export, not for local development. Those railways were built to serve to serve colonial interests, not local interests, staffed by colonial administrators and maintained under colonial funding. When colonizers left, they didn't leave the funding, the trained workforce, or the spare parts supply chain. They left the physical infrastructure, the physical structure, and went home. Meanwhile, in Britain, railways were maintained because they served the domestic economy. British capital reinvested in British infrastructure. That's the difference. It's not about African incapacity, it's about colonial resource extraction. Third, post colonial nations do maintain infrastructure when they have resources and institutional stability. Look at Botswana's infrastructure development. Look at Rwanda's recovery. These ain't exceptions. They are evidence that the problem is political economy, not racial capacity. The pastors claim that Africans can't build anything, so all infrastructure is built by foreigners. It's not true. Let me be real here. Yes, African nations have foreign contractors like Chinese, Russian, uh, German, but why? The answer is not Africans are incapable. It is because one, colonialism deliberately prevented the development of local capacity. Colonial systems trained just enough local administrators to execute orders, not to innovate or lead. When independence came, the infrastructure for training engineers, architects, and project managers had to be built from scratch. Two, capital, flight, and structural adjustment programs imposed by the World Bank and IMF. They drained resources that could have funded local institutions like local institutional building. You can develop a world class engineering sector when your budget is being squeezed to pay debt servicing. Three, the brain drain. The most talented engineers and architects from African nations often migrate to the West for better pay and resources. That's not because they are less capable, it's because incentive structures push them elsewhere. But here's what's actually happening. Main infrastructure projects are led by African engineers and architects. Many African countries have developed significant local capacity. Nigeria has engineers, Ghana has architects, South Africa has world-class construction firms. The narrative that Africans can't do it knows African professionalism active like African professionals actively building the nations. The pastor says black inventors only created things in America, not Africa. This is the most revealing argument because it shows the circular logic. If you invent something in Africa, it doesn't count as real innovation. If you invent something in the West, it counts as success but is credited to white supervision. That's not argument, that's a moving goalpost. But let us be clear, innovation happens where conditions for innovation exist. Industrial infrastructure, capital, patent systems, markets, these don't exist equally everywhere. That's not a black problem. That's a development economics problem. And we're seeing African innovation right now. M-Pesa in Kenya, revolutionary mobile money. Nigerian tech entrepreneurs are building billion-dollar companies. South African biotech is leading research. Rwandan drone delivery systems. These are happening in Africa by Africans solving African problems. Like, we don't need white people to save us, bro. But the narrative ignores this because it doesn't fit the black people are incapable story. Here's what people like this pastor don't want you to understand. Africa didn't fail. Africa was designed to fail by the colonizer. Colonialism wasn't just about taking resources. It was about breaking systems, breaking trade networks, breaking institutional knowledge, breaking confidence. European colonizers didn't arrive to find thriving civilizations and think, these people are capable. They did the opposite. They introduced artificial borders, extracted capital, created dependency on Western goods, and then, when they left nations without the institutional capacity to rebuild. That's not African incompetence. That's the intended outcome of colonialism. Post-colonial extraction continued through trade, unfair trade agreements, and resource theft by multinational corporations. Nigeria produces oil, but they can't refine it. Not because Nigerians are incapable, but because colonial structures were designed to prevent that capacity. If Nigerians refined their own oil, they'd keep the profits. So the systems was designed to require foreign refineries. That's not incompetence. It's deliberate architecture. I want to close with this. Why does this narrative persist in the black diaspora? Because self-doubt is profitable. If you believe you're incapable, you stop demanding systemic change. You start accepting crumbs. You stop building parallel institutions. You become resigned, right? That's the real purpose of this narrative. It's not about history. It is about psychological colonization, making us believe we deserve poverty and instability because we are incapable of anything else. We are not incapable. Our ancestors built empires, cities, systems that lasted centuries. We survived the worst crimes in human history and still build. What we're dealing with is not a capacity problem. It is a systemic problem. So no, the pastor's narrative is not just wrong. It is a distraction. It is designed to shift blame from systems to souls, from structures to stories. The real work is not changing black people's DNA. It is changing the system designed to extract from black communities. It is building institutions. It is capital recirculation. It's demanding reparations and restitution. It's refusing to accept that our present circumstances are inevitable. We've built before, we can build again, but only if we stop believing lies about who we are. Thank you for watching, and I hope we can all deconstruct this colonial narrative that Africans are incapable of building systems for themselves. I hope to see you in the next one.